What if Albert Einstein's 30-year, just obsessive search for the unified field theory failed, not because his math was flawed, but because he, completely ignored the consciousness of his own mind while he was actually doing the calculations?
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive accusation.
Right.
To level that at one of the most brilliant minds in human history is huge.
Yeah.
But if you accept the underlying premise of the text we're looking at today, it's kind of the only logical conclusion you could draw.
Yeah.
It's this idea that Einstein, and I guess modern science as a whole, missed the forest because they were just, exclusively obsessed with measuring the bark on the trees.
Wow. Yeah. Welcome to today's deep dive. Okay, let's unpack this, because right out of the gate, we really need to set the parameters for you, the listener. We are exploring a highly unique, deeply unconventional text from 2005.
Very unconventional.
Extremely. It's written by an author named Xu Feng, and it's titled The Chapter of Preaching Tao, Article 6, The Unified Field of the Universe.
Quite a title.
It is, and this source material, it just completely blends cosmology, theoretical physics, and this deep spiritual philosophy into one singular narrative. And before we go any further, I want to make it explicitly clear to you that we are not here today to endorse the scientific validity of these claims.
Right, exactly.
We are not taking sides against mainstream science or trying to validate alternative physics. Instead, our mission is just to impartially map out this specific author's fascinating intellectual framework. We want to understand how he attempts to merge the material and non-material worlds.
And to even begin to understand that framework, we really have to start with the text's most foundational definition of reality itself.
Okay, lay it on us.
So the author establishes this concept of the universe based on two Chinese terms. There's yu, which translates to infinite space, and zu, which translates to infinite time.
Infinite space and infinite time.
Right. So according to the text, the universe is a composite of both of these. It's made of material and non-material components that exist simultaneously within this infinite space and time.
Okay, so we aren't just talking about, the observable universe, right? Not just the galaxies or the vacuum of space.
No.
We're talking about an infinite container that holds literally everything, physical and entirely metaphysical, space and time. It's a grand stage.
It's the grandest stage.
But here is the hook. This is why this text is so provocative. Mainstream scientists have been searching for a unified field theory for decades. They want those universal laws that hold true everywhere. But according to this text, those highly decorated scientists have made a massive, fundamental, directional error.
Yeah, a directional error that, in the author's view, just doomed their search before they even pick up a piece of chalk.
Doomed from the start.
Exactly. And to understand this alternative worldview, we really have to look at its core critique of mainstream science's ultimate quest. The text explains that scientists, they dream of finding this one ultimate simple formula to describe everything.
Like the holy grail of physics.
Yes, the mathematical key to the universe. And the author compares the sheer magnitude of this challenge to the Goldbach conjecture in mathematics.
Oh, right. That's that towering, almost mythical problem that tempts all the greatest minds, but just remains utterly unsolved.
Exactly. And the text specifically zeroes in on Albert Einstein here. It notes that Einstein spent the last 30 years of his life trying to find this exact unified formula, only to end up, and these are the author's words, lamenting and empty-handed.
Lamenting and empty-handed. 30 years just grinding away at the equations, basically chasing a ghost.
Yeah.
But let's look at the mechanics of why the author thinks Einstein failed. It sounds like the author is saying mainstream science is trying to finish this massive jigsaw puzzle, but they've intentionally thrown out half the pieces just because they don't like the colors.
That is a great way to put it. And what's fascinating here is how vividly the source articulates that exact blindness.
Yeah, the imagery is wild.
It really is.
Yeah.
The author claims that scientists focus their vision uniformly and entirely on the material world. Like they completely ignore the non-material world because, they can't weigh it or calculate its velocity.
Right.
And the text uses this incredibly striking, almost provocative analogy to describe this limitation.
Oh, yeah. This part of the text really caught my attention. It is such a massive departure from your typical academic peer-reviewed language.
Definitely. The text compares the scientific method to admiring a beautiful woman.
Okay.
It says that scientists are focused solely on her smooth, tender skin and the surface-level breath of love, but they are entirely overlooking her myriad charms, her grace, and the deep complexities of her inner world.
Wow.
Yeah. And the author scathingly states that because of this surface-level obsession, scientists aren't, quote, masters of love in the universe. Instead, he compares them to jaded veterans lingering in the red light district.
Calling the greatest theoretical physicists of our time jaded veterans lingering in the red light district. I mean, just
Hmm.
because they only care about the physical, measurable stuff. It is a harsh critique.
It's very harsh.
But as a metaphor for material reductionism, I gotta say, it absolutely lands.
It paints a picture, for sure.
He is basically saying scientists are obsessed with the mechanical transactions of the universe. You know, the mass, the velocity, the spin, but they are completely devoid of any connection to the soul of it.
Right, the transaction over the profound connection. That's exactly it. And because science is allegedly only looking at this material half of the puzzle, we have to examine what they are actually seeing, what makes up their purely material worldview,
Right, let's map it out.
which leads us directly into the source's breakdown of mainstream physics.
Because he does acknowledge that scientists have a very detailed map of this red light district, so to speak. He maps out what they believe before he attempts to dismantle it. So the text points out that there are 4 fundamental forces mainstream scientists do recognize. There's the magnetic force, the gravitational force, the strong nuclear force, and the weak nuclear force.
Right, the standard 4.
Yeah, the ones we know. They govern everything from planets orbiting the sun to the radiation in a microwave, down to the binding of quarks in an atom.
And the text acknowledges that scientists are completely intoxicated by the fantasy of uniting these 4 specific forces. Like, they truly believe that if they can just weave gravity, electromagnetism, and the 2 nuclear forces into one seamless algebraic equation, then boom, they will have established the ultimate unified field of the universe.
But the author argues that obsessing over just these 4 is a trap.
A total trap.
He basically says, even if you do unite those 4, which, by the way, you still haven't done, it wouldn't actually be the true unified field.
He calls it an illusion of completion.
I like that.
You know, you think you've reached enlightenment, or in this case, a grand unified theory, but you've actually just mapped the perimeter of an illusion.
Yeah. And this brings in a surprising literary analogy that I just loved reading. The author compares this scientific fantasy to Tang Monk on his journey to the West.
Yeah, sourced directly from the classic Chinese mythological novel, Journey to the West.
Right. So Tang Monk is on this epic, really perilous journey to find sacred Buddhist scriptures. And at one point, he encounters a temple that looks incredible. It looks holy. It looks exactly like his final destination.
But it's not.
No, it's actually the false thunder sound temple. It's an illusion created by demons to trap him. So the author is saying that even if physicists unify the 4 material forces, they haven't found the ultimate truth. They've just walked right into the false temple, entirely missing the true thunder sound temple where the ancestral Buddha Tathagata actually resides.
It perfectly illustrates the danger of premature celebration.
Yeah.
When your entire worldview relies on tangible evidence, achieving a grand mathematical theory feels like the ultimate truth, right? Because it grants incredible technological power.
Sure, you can build atomic bombs and fly to the moon.
Exactly. But the author is arguing that technological power does not equal cosmic understanding. So if the 4 material forces are just a false temple, we really have to ask, what does the true temple look like?
Well, the author doesn't just tear down the 4 forces. He introduces an entirely new paradigm, the 8 forces of the universe.
The 8 forces, yeah.
He starts by listing the standard 4, the magnetic, gravitational, strong, and weak forces, but then he expands the framework radically. And here's where it gets really interesting, because the 5th force on his list is the repulsive force.
Right.
The text explicitly defines this as the force that causes like charges or poles to repel each other. But hold on a second. Separating magnetic attraction and magnetic repulsion fundamentally breaks the established math of electromagnetism.
He completely breaks it.
Yeah, in physics, they are just 2 sides of the exact same coin. So how does the author justify just snapping a fundamental law of physics in half?
Well, it's a profound, deliberate structural choice. By separating attraction, which he aligns with the magnetic, and repulsion, he is creating a philosophical duality in his list of forces.
Okay, I see.
In standard physics, pushing and pulling are just positive and negative vectors of the same field. But in many philosophical frameworks, separating the pulling together from the pushing apart allows you to treat them as distinct cosmic principles.
Wow.
It signals to the reader that we are no longer playing by the rules of standard physics textbooks. We are entering a new taxonomy of how the universe behaves, where the intention of the force matters just as much as the math.
He is basically redefining the fundamental building blocks to suit a philosophical worldview, rather than a strictly mathematical one. So we have magnetic, gravitational, strong, weak, and repulsive.
Right.
And now we cross the threshold into the entirely non-material realm, the final three forces.
Right. The text introduces the remaining three as structural force, spiritual force, and conscious force.
Let's break those down.
Yeah, let's look at the mechanics of those, starting with the structural force. The author describes this as being generated by the very structure of both material and non-material components. The text claims that any kind of structure has its own unique, inherent force that's capable of absorbing energy.
Wait, how does mere geometry absorb energy? Are we talking about something like a pyramid structure channeling specific frequencies, or is it more abstract than that?
Think about the mechanism of an antenna.
Okay.
An antenna is really just a piece of metal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you bend it into a very specific shape, that physical structure suddenly dictates what invisible radio frequencies it can pull from the air.
Oh, wow.
The structure actually demands specific energy, and the author is taking that concept and applying it to everything in the universe. The arrangement of a molecule, the architecture of a building, or even the structure of an abstract thought.
An abstract thought.
Yeah, each configuration naturally absorbs and channels a specific type of cosmic energy simply by existing in that shape.
The architecture of the universe demands power. I mean, that actually makes a lot of sense when you think about how form dictates function in biology.
Exactly. And then we have the seventh force, spiritual force. The author defines this as the force that causes mutual perception between things.
Mutual perception.
Yeah, it is the underlying connective tissue that allows one entity to sense, react to, or be aware of another entity across space and time.
Okay.
Standard science might look at gravity and say, mass curves space-time.
Well, right, the trampoline analogy.
Right. But this text looks at it and says, no, that is mutual perception. The sun and the earth perceive each other spiritually, and that perception creates the physical orbit.
So it's not just spooky action at a distance like quantum entanglement.
Yeah.
It's the idea that a mother, suddenly knowing her child is in danger miles away, operates on the exact same fundamental universal level as a planet orbiting a star. It's a force of pure connection.
Exactly.
And then we get to the eighth force, the conscious force.
And the text uses a highly specific, very biological example to explain the mechanics of this one. It describes conscious force as being similar to the brain's ability to make the bladder and urethra start working precisely when one wants to urinate.
I gotta say, if you're listening to this right now and thinking, did they just jump from Einstein's unified field theory and the structure of the cosmos to bathroom habits?
Yeah, it's quite the leap.
You are not alone. I laugh every time I read that part. It is just such biological bluntness.
It really is.
We are talking about infinite space, infinite time, the ancestral Buddha, and then suddenly we were talking about the brain telling the bladder it is time to go.
Right.
But honestly, if you look at what the author is actually doing here, it's pretty clever.
It's an incredibly effective rhetorical tool. By using this undeniable everyday bodily function, the author grounds a massive abstract concept.
Yeah.
Because science can map every neuron firing between the brain and the bladder, right? They can measure the chemical neurotransmitters, but they cannot weigh, measure, or calculate the invisible intention that caused the very first neuron to fire.
Wow, that's true.
That intention is the conscious force. It's the invisible command from the immaterial mind that causes a physical, material reaction in the body. You just cannot deny it happens, even if you can't put it into an algebraic equation.
And this brings us to the absolute root of Einstein's failure, according to the text.
The author synthesizes this perfectly. He claims that Einstein and modern scientists fail because they cannot measure or calculate these last four forces, the repulsive, structural, spiritual, and conscious.
Right.
And because science inherently relies on measurement, if they can't calculate a force, they assume it just does not exist, or they treat it as totally irrelevant to physics. But the author argues that you cannot deny the existence of intention or mutual perception just because your tools are inadequate.
The text actually gets pretty combative here. The author directly taunts the scientific establishment.
Oh yeah, he doesn't hold back.
No, he says, quote, many scientists might mock Xufeng. Go ahead and mock. Laugh to your heart's content. Let's see who will laugh last.
Such confidence.
He is entirely unshaken by the fact that he has no math to back this up because in his framework, math is a fundamentally insufficient tool for understanding reality. It's like trying to measure the beauty of a painting with a thermometer.
Supreme confidence in a philosophical synthesis over a mathematical one.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the ultimate question of the text. If math and calculation cannot capture these non-material forces, how does the universe unite them?
Right.
If scientists are doomed to fail because they are missing half the puzzle pieces, what is the actual solution for tying the material and the spiritual together?
We finally arrive at the author's grand unified theory.
According to the text, what the author calls Lifechanyuan's unified field theory of the universe, the unified field doesn't need to be discovered. It doesn't need to be glued together or calculated by a human mathematician.
Wait, so what is it?
It already exists. It has already been perfectly established since the beginning of time, and the author calls it the Tao of the greatest creator.
The Tao. And how exactly does this Tao work mechanically? Because it can't just be a philosophical buzzword, right? It has to function as a system to hold all 8 of those forces: the gravity, electromagnetism, structural energy, consciousness, together without falling apart.
Well, the text explains that the Tao functions as a holographic system,
Okay.
and this system is composed of 3 fundamental interlocking elements: consciousness, structure, and energy.
Consciousness, structure, and energy. Okay, break that down for us. Explain the mechanism of a holographic system. How does that actually operate?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the concept of a holographic universe is really profound. In a traditional photograph, if you cut it in half, you only have half the image, right? You lose information.
Yeah, half the picture's just gone.
Right. But in a true hologram, if you shatter the holographic plate into 1,000 pieces and shine a laser through even the tiniest shard, that single shard still projects the entire complete three-dimensional image.
Oh, wow.
Every single part contains the blueprint of the whole.
So it's less like building a car out of separate, distinct parts and more like DNA.
Exactly.
A single cell taken from your fingertip contains the entire genetic blueprint for your whole body. So if the universe is holographic, you don't need a massive equation to tie everything together from the top down, because the unity is already baked into every single interaction from the bottom up.
Precisely. Because it is holographic, those 3 elements, consciousness, structure, and energy, effortlessly bind all 8 forces together across both the material and non-material worlds.
Man, that's wild to think about.
Think of how they interlock. Consciousness gives the command or intention.
Right.
Structure provides the blueprint or the antenna to receive it. And energy provides the fuel to manifest it. The structural force, the spiritual force, the gravity, the magnetism, they aren't separate. Disconnected phenomena that need to be artificially forced into one equation by Einstein.
They're all the same thing.
They're just different expressions of consciousness, structure, and energy interacting holographically within infinite time and space.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Whether you are prepping for a meeting, casually catching up on philosophy, or just insanely curious about how different people view the universe, this text serves as a massive pattern interrupt.
It really does.
It challenges you to look at your own map of reality. What unseen forces, like the structural energy of the environments you place yourself in, or the mutual spherical perception you share with the people around you, might you be completely ignoring in your own life simply because they are hard to quantify?
Yeah, are you throwing out essential puzzle pieces of your own intuition or consciousness just because they don't fit the neat, measurable little box you've built for yourself?
It is a profound call to broaden our field of vision. To stop lingering in the red light district of purely material transactional living, and to begin appreciating the immense power and influence of the inner, non-material universe as well.
Absolutely.
We have covered incredible ground today. We started with the foundational definitions of infinite time and infinite space, U and ZOO. We examined the 30-year failure of Einstein and the directional error of mainstream science, which refuses to look past the measurable.
Right.
We walked right past the false temple of the 4 material forces and stepped into the grand architecture of the 8 forces, complete with conscious forces and those undeniably blunt bladder analogies.
Can't forget those.
Nope. And finally, we arrived at the holographic system of the Tao, driven by consciousness, structure, and energy.
But the text does not let us off the hook that easily.
Oh.
It ends the very specific, lingering thought. After laying out this massive, mind-bending cosmic framework, the author writes one final short instruction. He says, the remaining task is to work on the Tao.
The remaining task is to work on the Tao.
Which leaves us with a highly provocative question to mull over, long after this deep dive ends. If this holographic system of consciousness, structure, and energy already perfectly governs the universe, if it is already whole, unbroken, and fully functional across infinite space and time, what does it actually mean for us, on a practical, daily human level, to work on it?
Wow.
What is left for a human being to do if the universe is already unified?
That is the question. If you finally accept that the invisible forces of connection, intention, and structure are just as real as gravity,
Yeah.
you can't just stare at the map anymore. You actually have to figure out how to align yourself with those forces. You have to learn how to navigate them. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your mind open, keep your curiosity sharp, and we will see you next time.